Welcome back to Einstein Media Center, your one-stop shop for all unnecessary media dissection. Today we are joined with a very special guest. Please welcome Damien Verrett. You might know him from math rock band tsosis or from his solo work, So Much Light. Damien, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Can you give a little background of who you are and, what it is that you do and how long you've been doing it for?
Yeah, totally. Well, my name's Damien Verrett. I'm from Sacramento, California. My main instrument is guitar and voice. I think most people who might be interested in watching this are probably familiar with the math rock band I started when I was in high school, which was originally called The Speed of Sound and Seawater, and now we go by tsosis. In addition to that, I have a solo project called So Much Light, which is largely like more pop, electronic, like dance centered. That project has put out records with Anti Records and Inner Oceans. And then I think maybe most consequentially, as far as like a credit I have, is I got to be a touring member of American football for their first run through Japan and mainland and Southeast Asia. Yeah, so that's basically it for me.
All very awesome things. I guess where I'd like to start is you started when it was The Speed of Sound and Seawater. You started that back in high school from Sacramento. I'm on the East Coast. I'm from the East Coast, but from
Cool.
what I've gathered, Sacramento's got a pretty rich, music scene and music history. How did that inform you growing up, and
Yeah,
did that like inspire to start a band, especially in that style?
totally. Yeah, it's cool that you pick up on that. And I think it's fun to like talk about it and just like, I don't know, put it in writing somewhere, because I think there's a little bit of confusion when I see people talking online about like which bands are from Sacramento and who maybe knew each other and who came up together. It's funny to me because I'm like, a lot of the bands that I was listening to in high school, people think like we were in the scene together. And it's like, no, that's the thing that we were, influenced by. And then stuff that comes after, well, there's not a lot that comes after, but mainly before, where I don't know. I think the Mount Rushmore of like Sacramento area bands, I'll try to do it from like top to bottom. It's like Hella is the really big one that was like extremely influential. And then kind of around the same era would be like DGD and Terra Mellos. Those guys are kind of like the same age. And then the stuff that I was coming up alongside of was like, Speed of Sound and Seawater, that was us. And then we were always playing with a lot like Birds. So like, that's kind of like in order of age, like who is coming out at the same time. And then on that top Hella tier, there's obviously like way bigger bands, like Deftones are kind of that same age. And then, nearby there was like Papa Roach. And like those guys are all like, that's like the Gen Z tier. Sorry, Gen X. That's like the Gen X guys. A little younger than that would be like DGD and Terra Mellos. And then there's like the millennial crew, who's like a lot like Birds, tsosis. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. From Indian Lakes was coming through, and Hail are from Chico, but they were playing with us. Hail the Sun were playing with us at these shows at this now defunct venue called Luigi's, that every now and again someone from like the East Coast or some other city or state will have heard of Luigi's because they see like a flyer like on Google image search or something, and it's like, that's crazy. That's a really deep cut. If you've ever heard of that place or been to a show there, that's like real street cred.
That's really funny. It's interesting, like all of those, for me, I was big into DGD and a lot like Birds, back when everybody was coming up, or I guess you and a lot like Birds were coming up in the early 2010s. Terra Mellos, not that they're an outlier, but it's just, I never realized they were also from Sacramento. It's very interesting to see how their sound like permeated into like a tsosis or a lot like birds.
Yeah, I know for me personally, and I think, a lot of the guitarists in the scene that we came up with were really into Nick Reinhardt and the way he played, and specifically like the way he was setting his pedal boards up and just the trippy, really weird signal chains and like yeah, just particularly the way he set up his like boss delay thing where he just like you smack it and then it just sets off this crazy like feedback thing. And then the way he was using like his Digitech whammy, like people really want to nerd out on pedal board stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, it was such a unique sound, especially for the time. It's really interesting to hear about that. Like, especially you being in high school at the time, I'm sure that was like kind of mind blowing.
Totally, yeah. So like, I would go see Taramellis play at Luigi's on bills with like a couple times I saw them playing with bands with former members from Hella. Like Spencer had this awesome band that, oh my God, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like very video game music-y. And then there was this band, Them Hills, that was from, because we don't have to get that into it, but basically there's this town just outside of Sacramento, maybe like 90 minutes, called Nevada City. That's like in the foothills, and it's like very like hippie adjacent. So like a lot of that's where Hell is actually from. A lot of the wilder, like more psychedelic stuff was kind of like creeping downstream because Sacramento is just like the closest big city. So we got kind of like some of the runoff from the really cool artsy bands that were happening up in Nevada City.
And now, you started Speed of Sound back in high school. Did you always grow up playing music? Was like music always a big part of your life?
Yeah, totally. I mean, my dad played his playing still, in cover bands. So I remember him like playing guitar and singing to me in the bathtub, and he's very much a multi-instrumentalist. He plays guitar, mainly keys. He plays saxophone and harmonica. He's a way better singer than I am. He's like, he's like a sick, like lead vocalist, in like a more classic way. So I picked it up from that. My first instrument was saxophone in like the elementary school band. And then I switched to guitar and was like, okay, I'm not going to look back. I'm not going to be a woodwind player anymore.
That's pretty cool. Was there anything, that he listened to or you grew up listening to by proxy that informed the way you either listen or write music, anything like that?
I think so, especially like once I got into my 20s, because he was listening to and playing a lot of R&B stuff. And I'm sure, like subconsciously, the stuff I was doing earlier on was influenced by that. But then like very explicitly, once I started going like more pop R&B with my solo projects. Yeah, so I'm like grateful for that foundation. And, it's cool that we can talk music, and he's really into that stuff. He's into like smooth jazz stuff, all the stuff that I remember hearing in the car on the radio when I was maybe like a preteen teenager, thinking was like not cool at all to me. And now I listen back and like, I'm like, dang, we were listening to some good music and I kind of didn't appreciate it at all.
That's the way it goes though.
Yeah.
You do end up seeing your parents were right all along.
Yeah, totally. It was like the era when I wanted to be listening to like Sum 41. And I'm like, I wanted to hear that instead of like Sade. Now I'm like, you better not put Sum 41 on my fucking car, like in place of Sade. Like, that'd be unforgivable. Not unforgivable. It'd just be a weird switch up.
So speaking of so much, like that is something that, I really appreciated about, especially after having listened to tsosis first, seeing you jump into your solo work, having it be so pop forward and I guess accessible and like just really good to listen to. What what inspired you to take that direction? What was that, just a natural feel, or was there something that made you want to exercise that type of music?
Yeah, I think like weirdly, my first instrument was actually like FL Studio. I think I started making electronic music before I was even playing guitar. And, it's electronic music by nature of being in like a DAW. I wasn't making anything that was necessarily like attached to any particular electronic genre. But so that like always came pretty naturally. And even I think when I set out making music, I was more interested in producing. I think if the tools that exist today had existed back then, I think I probably wouldn't have picked up a guitar. I'm grateful for the order that things happened in, but I probably would have been making like dance music, house music, electronic stuff from like the very beginning. So that always was like a gear I liked shifting into. And then I just got more and more and more interested in pop music. And like, I came out of high school having such a niche musical taste. I was really into a lot of like these indie bands and math rock stuff and like nothing very mainstream. And granted, I feel like the 2010s were kind of like, sorry, it wasn't the 2010s. It was like late 2000s were like kind of a dark time for like popular music where it was like nothing was that good. We had like Lady Gaga and Kanye. And then once I was into college, some of the stuff that was coming out started to get really interesting. And I found some of the more esoteric stuff. And like, I've always been a huge Bjork fan, and that's, very electronic production forward. And I always really liked Aphex Twin. So I just like being able to wear multiple hats and to shift up into different genre spaces. It just keeps things fresh. And, through the years, So Much Light has like taken on a lot of different shapes, but it's nice because now that there's multiple buckets going at the same time, I'm like, everything can kind of crystallize where it's like, okay, like tsosis is probably not going to have electronic elements. And then So Much Light stuff is like getting more and more dancey, like electronic, like heavy all the time. And I feel like there's more space to do that now. And I don't know, I'm never really worried about like pissing anyone off, but it doesn't make it easy as far as like selling the elevator pitch of something. If it's like, this band is this and also this and this and this, it's like it's just like too much ink on the page to explain what the thing is if you're dipping into all these genres in a way that doesn't feel cohesive. So yeah.
So that kind of spurs a question I'm a little curious about. Obviously, tsosis is pretty set in stone math rock band. You have a bit more freedom with So Much Light. Are there any other projects that you are either trying to get off the ground or thinking of doing to, again, like exercise a whole new genre that just wouldn't fit in the other two?
Yeah, totally. I actually like just nearly finished this singer-songwriter acoustic album.
Cool.
Because So Much Light basically started as like solo acoustic stuff, and that was mainly out of necessity because I wanted to be able to tour more. The guys in Speed of Sound weren't really like interested or available to do it as consistently as I wanted to. So I did a lot of runs with like, those same bands we came up with. I did some runs with Hale and like Strawberry Girls, where it was like this kind of strange genre mashup where I was up there like an acoustic guitar and then like Strawberry Girls would come on after. And it's like, it kind of makes sense, I guess, because like the stuff I was doing is pretty guitar forward. But then I shifted into the pop thing and it was like, now there's like no space for this other thing I do, which felt like almost like the most core to how I would express I'm just going to call it my name. It's just going to be Damien Verrett. And I hadn't ever done that. And I'm glad I waited this long, because now I feel like I always hesitated to put that name on anything, because I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, is it like the most distilled self-expression of, like the meanness of the art form? Is it like enough? Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, I feel pretty confident with my like writing and playing and like engineering abilities, where I'm like, no, I do feel good about just like slapping my, given name on this thing. And I'm really excited about how it's turning out. I really like the songs, and I'm just excited to be able to play in that form again, where it's like, doing the one guy with a guitar thing well can be really compelling. It can be the most tedious performance you can ever witness too. Like, like if you go full like Wonderwall guy to party with a guitar, it's like, yeah, literally like maybe the type of performance I would be most least excited to experience. But when it's good, it's like it can be really, really cool. And I'm also playing harp and like piano on it too. So that's part of it. Is I've been learning harp for like, oh my God, I've had it for like 6 years now, I guess. I'm not great at it, but I can finally like get through songs I've written, and it's such a special instrument, and it's really exciting to finally be hearing things completed on it that I wrote, where I'm like, oh, this is completely different than anything I've done. It's just so celestial, and like I don't know, it's such a good instrument, and I'm glad I can kind of play it.
There's a lot to go off there, but I have
Sure.
to jump to the harp. So
Yeah.
it is an incredibly unique instrument. I there's really nothing like it. What drove you to the harp particularly, and is there some sort of inherent drive inside of you, like as a musician, as an artist, to try and learn these more unique and like, I'm going to say special types of instruments?
Sure. Yeah. So my favorite artist of all time is Joanna Newsom. She's a harpist from Nevada City, like that place that Hell is from. Joanna Newsom is in a band with Zach Hill, or was. Yeah, pretty crazy. So she is like the biggest, probably like the single largest driving force creatively for me of like any like individual I've ever encountered, like, across any medium, where just, I don't know. It's like, I think everyone has that one core, like muse, like individual. I know like Prince was obsessed with Joni Mitchell, and I'm like, for me it's Joanna Newsom. I'm so into Joanna Newsom, and I've always wanted to play harp, but it's prohibitively expensive to play. The kind of harp that she's playing is a pedal harp. If you see at a wedding or something, like the very tall, like 6 foot tall column type harp, like a student model pedal harp is like $10,000. So it's like, there's no entry level pedal harp. I have a folk harp, and even those can be really expensive. And I was always kind of like, I don't even know how to play this. I'm not going to shell out. It's like, we're still talking about like $1,500, and it's a pretty small thing. So one day I was just like walking through Midtown in Sacramento, and there was a garage sale, and there was this Aoyama. It's this Japanese harp brand. They had this Aoyama folk harp like on the corner. And I was like, dude, what are you selling that for? And he's like, I give it to you for $150. And I was like, don't sell it to anyone else. Like, I'm going to go to an ATM right now, and I'm going to come straight back. So I walked like 2 blocks to an ATM, walked back, bought it. It's a $2,000 folk harp.
Goodness.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, it's just been sitting in my basement. I had a friend who was a harpist who just gave it to me like decades ago. And it's just been sitting in the basement. So yeah, I got that in like 2019. And it was like, it just felt like this lightning bolt moment where I was like, oh my God, I just like accidentally acquired this harp. Like if I hadn't been walking that street that day at that moment, I wouldn't have gotten this thing that's like, now it's one of the 3 nicest instruments I own.
Right.
So that's my harp story. It just felt like absolutely fated. Like, yeah, the best garage sale look I've ever had. Yeah.
It's truly meant to be.
Yeah, it felt like it.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. I'm very excited to hear the new whatever it is, EP or album.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And one thing you said before was you finally feel now comfortable using or releasing music under your given name. And maybe I'm looking a little too deep into this, but I feel like doing it under a singer-songwriter, a very stripped back and honest approach is like, to me, it seems very intentional and very purposefully vulnerable. It really aligns with the fact that you're using your given name, you're approaching the music in this very vulnerable fashion. Am I missing something there? Am I like kind of hitting the nail on the head?
No, yeah, definitely. I think I have begun to think more about this idea of like cohesion across projects. And weirdly, it's something that I think when I was younger, I would have been really averse to the idea of it. And yet the Speed of Sound stuff is really cohesive. And like even lyrically and thematically, there's a lot of storytelling. And I've always really liked that. But Second Nature, like the most recent tsosis LP, is like the most personal any of that stuff ever got. And it's probably like the last time I'm going to do that with that project, honestly, because it doesn't feel necessary anymore. It kind of felt like the purpose of that was to sort of turn a page on like this new chapter for the band. But I've never really done like full confessional, like singer-songwriter thing. And it's fun to do it. It's really cool. And I think just like I'm like about to turn 34. So it's like, it feels like, okay, like there's a little more life behind, some of the songwriting. And then I feel a lot more confident on my instrument now on guitar. So I have a lot more levers to pull in the department of like solo guy with a guitar. I'm like, I kind of have a better idea of how to play with arrangement and dynamic to make it, compelling, without a ton of production behind it. And then even the way I recorded it, I'm pretty content with the sound. It feels like, okay, there's this signature on all of this that, there's this thread running through all of it. And yet every song kind of touches on different themes. And then as a whole, it's like about this larger concept. So yeah, I'm stoked with how it turned out.
That's awesome. And if you don't mind me asking, is it coming out anytime soon or in the near future?
It's so funny. Like putting music out nowadays is weird. Just like the social media side of it. Cause I'm like, oh, I have to like make a new Instagram and like film a bunch of shit. But I'm gonna start putting stuff out for it pretty soon.
Cool.
I just gotta mix some of this stuff. I think I finally decided. I think I'm gonna mix it all myself because that's another side of it where I'm like, I'm pretty confident with mix. I feel like I charge people for mixes, so I'm like, if I can't mix my own voice with one guitar, I'm like, I have no business charging anybody any amount of money. So I'm like, I can mix it. It's so easy. Yeah, so it shouldn't take long. I mean, even when I listen to like the SoundCloud demos, I'm like, these could be done. It's fine. It doesn't have to be that much more special.
Yeah. So now, do you tend to like do all of your? I know for so much like pretty much all the production is you. Do you tend to do all of your own engineering and mixing and all of that yourself?
Yeah, and like engineering is the component that I'm becoming more confident with. And I guess for anybody who's not like, doing this kind of work. Engineering's literally setting up and hitting record on the microphone. It's like you're the guy who like chooses what microphone to pair with what instrument, at what distance away it's going to be, what gear it's running through, and like all that stuff feels decreasingly intimidating as I like do work and like get work back from people. And like I think over the years, I think this is true for a lot of people, it's really easy to oversell the complexity of some of this stuff. And then you're kind of creating a barrier or a ceiling, a limit on your own ability to learn something. Like you're not trusting yourself to be able to acquire a certain skill set. And it's not that hard. Like it's really not. It's like if you're in a good sounding room with a good sounding instrument and you play the part well, it's like you can't really fuck it up unless you had like a refrigerator plugged in the room and you didn't notice it. It's like there's a lot of low hanging fruit in terms of how you can present the thing well. And I think people get really bogged down with equipment and technical aspects of it. Like I've met so many people who know a lot of terminology and have a ton of plugins and like have never put anything in front of me that I was like blown away by. And then similarly, you know, I have so many friends who like own one microphone, don't know the first thing about like what they're actually doing, and they make stuff that sounds really good. At the end of the day, it has so much more to do with intent and vision than any schooling.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to hear you say that. I feel like that's encouraging because it's like anybody really can do it if you got to be good, but practice and all of that, like you can be the best version of yourself easily without all the bells and whistles.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like there's just like a few things where there's not even that many what not to do's. You know, if I'm giving like music production advice or like lessons or something, there's like a checklist of 5 things ish that I'm like, just don't do these. You know, the meter shouldn't be turning red. and you should like the music, you know, and you know, run it by some people, whether it sounds professional or not, and then be willing to refine it. But there's a lot more important things than how much money you spent on the microphone you're singing into.
Yeah, definitely. And now, so you have your new project coming out under your given name. You've been releasing a lot of So Much Light music.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you're gearing up for a So Much Light release.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so last year I did like a pretty big tour opening for my buddy, the Hobo Johnson. He's another SAC artist. So it was like the biggest rooms I've played by far. And I knew, I was like, I need to have this music I'm working on. This is past tense. The music I was working on at the time, I was like, I got to finish these so that I can have them on a disc that I can give out at the merch table. Cause I'm like, there's gonna be so many bodies and people in this room. And like, I'm going to be meeting all these people and I want them to be able to leave with like the stuff they heard. But I was feeling overwhelmed at like, you know, the process of putting stuff out nowadays is like, it's both really freeing and also very discouraging because you're like, oh my God, like I have to do this, and this. And then, you know, I can't put 9 songs out, you know, this is in the 3 months leading up to this tour I was going to go on. So I was like, I can finish it all though. So I set this goal of like, get all the mixes back. And then I literally had this CD burner that I bought, like this tower. It looks like a PC tower, and it has 5 disk drives in it, and it has 6. So you put a CD in the top, and it burns 5 CDs at a time. And I was doing that like on demand at the merch booth, and like giving out basically like all these recordings that now they're almost all out. But I was like, this is cool. I'm like bootlegging or like leaking this thing that's not out yet. And it just felt cool. And like people now who are at their shows, who got the CD, they'll hear the thing come out on Spotify and they're like, oh, that's like my favorite one on it. And they already have it because like they've been listening to it since last summer. So there's one more song from that batch that's not out. And then I think I'm going to put the whole thing out as like an album. But then behind that, there's like 6 other things I've been working on that I'm pretty psyched about. I think now that project's going to become the thing that's on this like 4 to 5 week running cycle of like constantly putting stuff out. Like I think I could probably release a song a month. I don't know. I don't want to like jinx it. I could probably release a song every 4 to 5 weeks for So Much Light until like next year. Yeah, so that's kind of the plan, just because it's like dance stuff and it's like, you know, it's a little more sugary. It's a little more instant gratification, like jammers, like bangers, and I like, you know, the idea of having that option where it just kind of always feels like an irons in the fire, where it's just such a weird release ecosystem nowadays. And this last one I put out, it's so funny because like you never know what's gonna kind of like catch the Spotify algorithm, because the Spotify algorithm just feels really unforgiving. But this last one just so randomly is getting like way more streams than the previous like 5 or 6. So that's encouraging, where it kind of feels like I have to retrain the Spotify algorithm to tell like what the fuck is this project. It's like, you know, the first album is like this acoustic math rock thing. The second one is probably the most like what I'm doing now. But then in the middle, there's like this weird like psychedelic indie thing. There's like a lo-fi album. And now it's like, okay, now it's kind of back to what I always intended for it to be. But the interim, all the weird steps, it was basically because tsosis wasn't happening. It's because I was like writing on these like rocker guitar drums bass songs. Nothing was moving in that project. So I was like, well, crap, now I have to kind of adapt them into something that's a bit more pop, put it in the So Much Light bucket because that's the only other one I have. So now I'm like, nope, everything's going to be cohesive from here on out. Got 3 different hats I can wear, and like, I don't know. I can't think of any other thing I want to make right now, but if I do, I'll just make a new project for it. And I don't know. It's cool that you can do that nowadays, and it doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't matter. It's like whatever I want to do. It doesn't really matter to anyone but me.
Right. And it's almost freeing because it's, you know, it's like, oh, you were holding some expectations of me. You want a math rock? Go back to
Yeah, I know, totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because like when Second Nature came out, you know, I like read comments. I like it. It's a small community. And even when people are like, oh, it's not like the old stuff, I'm like, no, it totally isn't. Like, I totally agree with that. And it's validating in a way, because I'm like, no, I agree with them. I think there's something really special about those first 2 and 3 EPs where I'm like, no, like I want it to steer back that direction. And it's going to, if I can make that happen. Like, I'm not going to do it in a way that feels contrived. I'm not just going to like self-reference, but I'm like, no, totally. I can appreciate and understand and like visualize the perfect like crystallization of what tsosis could be. And it involves elements from those first 2 EPs, really the first one, where I'm like, I listened back to some of the guitar playing on that and I'm like, dude, what was I doing? Like, that stuff is cool. Like, I don't even know where I was pulling that from. And I want to go back there because it's like a cool playing style that I'm like, dude, if a 17-year-old was like, listen to my band and they put that in front of me, I'd be like, dude, what the fuck? Like, what is this? Like, how did you make this? So I'm like, that's cool. Like, kudos to us in high school. That's weird shit.
Yeah. I mean, I know I was telling you this earlier, but like I found your music when I was in high school back, I guess like 2012, 2013. It was before First Contact came out. And I was just like, what the hell is going on with this stuff? It was so like just weird, and the guitar parts were like so crazy. I had like never heard anything like it before.
Sick. Thank you. That's validating. Yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward now, one thing you keep saying, and I thought it immediately when I was listening to the new So Much Light singles, was, Oh Yuck, I listened to a ton when it came out.
Oh, awesome.
It very, very pop forward, which I love. Now you're going in this dancey direction. Loving
Yeah.
that too. What's like the inspiration for that dance pivot for you?
It's a couple things. I guess I'll do like the practical and like music production answer, which is I think a lot of people who make electronic music, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by the breadth of decisions at your disposal. Like you could do anything, you could make anything. So, the way you imprint on the artwork is your style, but then it's like I hadn't thought that much about form in like the electronic space. And I talked about feeling influenced by Bjork and like Aphex Twin, but those are two artists that are like really nebulous. Like apart from there, like there's a huge style emphasis for both of them where it's like, yeah, they're using electronic tools, but like what does that even mean? That's like saying like I use stringed instruments, it's like too broad a category. And I hadn't gotten that interested in the, electronic subgenres. And I suffered from the same disorder that I think a lot of people who grew up in bands or playing instruments suffer from, where they're like, it all sounds the same. And it's like, dude, if you listen to a drum and bass song and then you listen to like a house song, it's like they do not sound the same. Like they fundamentally don't sound the same. They're completely different tempos. They're not using any of the same types of sounds. Emotionally, they're extremely different. Energetically, they're very different. And that's two different genres. And I think it took me a really long time because it's super daunting to like kind of dig in there and appreciate like what it is about each thing that is different, and then to find what you actually like. So that was the thing that took me the longest. And then the personal side of it was like, I've been going to Burning Man since I was like 26. So I think this will be my 7th time going. And it's like, there's a lot of electronic music at this thing. And just being in front of these pretty high quality sound stages, it's not by any means like the biggest electronic festival out there, but I had this like moment in front of this sound system where I was like, I totally get it. Like the sound system is the instrument. It was like the live experience of it made it make perfect sense. Whereas like the frequency response of this extremely expensive, highly tuned sound system is fucking crazy. Like I think when people don't like bass music, it's like, dude, if you stand in front of a good sound system playing bass music, it's like a roller coaster, because the sub you don't even realize there's this range of like sub that is like, it's so articulate on a big sound system. And it's like, dude, it's like being on a ride. Like you feel it in your guts. And then if it's a good DJ who's like doing a good job of like riding the dynamic of the track they're in, going into the next track versus what is the audience doing? Is anyone even dancing? Okay, they're not paying attention. Let's get their attention back. Like that flow is really hard. I think people don't appreciate how hard it is to keep people dancing for like 3 hours straight. And when you see someone do it well, it's like you feel like you've surrendered all agency to this like wizard, you know. It's like it's magical. And like I totally get people who come from like prog and like instrument heavy and like virtuosic genres who are like that's not for me. But once you this is how I feel about all art, is it's like, dude, try to find the thing you like, because it's always going to feed back into your own work. It's just, what could be bad about trying to add more joy to your life, you know? So it's like, if millions of people like this thing, there has to be some legitimacy to it. It's like, it's so arrogant to imagine like, all those guys are all just like robots. They're idiots. So yeah, I think finally like getting a grip on like why people like that, and now getting to do it, like that tour I did last summer, biggest stages I've ever played, and I was like blasting, like, you know, there's like songs with like drops and stuff, and it's like, dude, you can't knock it till you try it. It is a very, very good feeling to like be working in this form where it's like there's tension and release in this way that all music has, but it feels like there's this there's a little bit of guidance where it's like everybody knows what's about to happen. They don't know how it's going to happen, but it's like they know it's going to drop here. And it's like versus math rock, which is almost the exact opposite. So I don't know. Long answer to a good question.
No, that was such a great answer. There's so much you said that I really loved. I think, and I'm guilty of this too, as somebody who grew up playing instruments, being into, you know, prog, metal, math rock, like electronic music is such a blind spot for me. And it's like, it's funny. One thing you said where it's like, you know, there's so many different types of electronic music. It's like, it's like when you have to explain, like, no, this is emo, this is hardcore, this is metal.
Totally.
And it's like, as somebody who grew up on that stuff, it's like, wait, to get into electronic music, I got to do all of that again.
Yeah.
That I'm not crazy about to begin with.
Totally. Yeah. It's super overwhelming. Yeah. I don't know. And it's hard to find an entry point, I think, is the hardest thing. And like the entry point for me was like a playlist a friend made. And I was like, yeah, this stuff is pretty cool. And then I found the thing that really resonated with me. And I was like, oh my God, I totally get it. Like, this is my little corner of this world. And then you get deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's just like, yeah. And then you start to appreciate the stuff around it even more. But it's exactly like you're saying. It's like, I think people who make that judgment are not giving credit to like, okay, like how different really are Midwest emo and math rock. And if I put that on for somebody, it's like, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy.
They're just going to be like, yeah, it sucks and I hate it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Another huge like type of music that I love is jam bands, which also has a horrendous reputation, but that ebb and flow of like a really good DJ set, the same thing. Like it can make or break a good jam band. Like all of the memes you see about like jam bands when they're sounding horrible, it's like a Grateful Dead set or a Fish set when they're all wigged out on something and it sounds terrible. It's like, that's not the good representation.
Totally. I think people really, you can't knock it until you've tried it. It's like, and it's always something that has a really strong culture around it that people are deeply skeptical of, which is funny because I would imagine the opposite should be true. But I think people see a thing that they're not a part of and they feel a little wigged out by it, which makes sense. You feel left out and like you kind of don't think that that's what's happening. But it's like, no, like, come on, like it's fun. Obviously, there's 10,000 people here, you know, listening to this set. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And that's really another great point. It's like there is, and this is true for art in general, but like there is community in a lot of these things. And I think that's another thing that people might be afraid of. It's like, will I be accepted? Will I be welcomed? And it's like, that's, and I'm sure you feel this way, like that's probably the most beautiful thing about music and art is the fact that there is community.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, and I've realized now, just like doing it for so long, that comes in like cycles within a city's music scene, within a genre. It's like there's this ebb and flow where it's like, I mean, Sacramento suffers from this in a big way because it's a smaller city where it's like venues close, there aren't bands for a while, and now I've seen this wave happen like 4 or 5 times where it's like it's never dead. And I always try to think back on examples that were set for me when I was younger, and like largely there's like a lot of what not to do's, where I'm like, I remember meeting a lot of really jaded people who were the age that I am now or younger and acted as though like, oh, the thing's dead, like anything that's happening now is like total bullshit. And I'm like, I don't think I'm ever gonna get like that, just because I'm like, I don't know, I just actually enjoy music so much that I'm like, I don't feel I try to really check myself if I'm feeling like a sense of being threatened by something. And it's like, you have to be honest with yourself. And it's like, well, why is that? I can examine it, and like, then you can deal with it. But like, if you let that solidify and like become your personality, it's like, your pool of what you can derive joy from and like who wants to be your friend gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's good to try to enjoy things, and it's like it's a muscle you have to keep working.
That's such great advice, because I agree. It's so easy when you have that reflexive, like, ew, no, I don't like that reaction. It's like, it's very easy to roll with it because it's like, that's my gut. I trust my gut. But it's so much more, I think, at least, it's so fulfilling when it's you challenge yourself and you're like, no, give something a try. And whether it works out or not, you've confirmed for yourself, I do or don't like this thing. And it could lead to, greener pastures along the way.
Yeah, totally. I can think of like 2 of my favorite bands where the first time I heard them, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, like, what is this? And now I'm like, oh, I love it. Like, it's the stuff that takes a little while to sink in that can be like the most impactful.
I do have to ask, one of the things you said when we first got on was, you said potentially, most notably, you got to tour with American football.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure you've had to talk about that to death over the past 5 or 6 years. But
I love talking about it.
I guess first question was, just tell me about it. How was it? And then secondly, being on tour with truly a legendary band in the scene, was there something that you were able to take from them or learn from them, given they are older, and even though they were essentially defunct for a very long time, like, was there something with touring with an older group of guys and a more tenured group of guys, like, was there something that inspired you or you're able to take away and learn from with them?
Yeah, totally. So I guess, like, first of all, the experience, so it was really, really exciting. It was 2019. They were playing Fuji Rock, so that was gonna be their first Japan date. I think maybe they'd been to Japan, but they had never played Fuji Rock, and then they had never been to mainland China. They'd never done Hong Kong, and then we played a bunch of Southeast Asian countries and cities. So a lot of first time like venues, cities, a lot of people who had, grown up loving this band who were going to see them for the first time ever. So that was exciting for me because I got to do that as an audience member when they played San Francisco for the first time, because my longtime friend, Jason Cupp, is their sound tech. And he was visiting and he's like, do you want to go hang out and see American football? And I was like, yeah, what the fuck? Like, of course I do. So we went there. I like got to stay at their Airbnb and like meet all of them. That's how I met them. And then years later, this thing was coming up. I'd hung out with them like a bunch of times in between meeting them and when this gig came up. So they knew I wasn't like annoying. They knew I was like a good hang, and they like knew I could play guitar. so then Steve Holmes, the other guitarist, couldn't make it because he had like younger kids at the time, and he has like a day job. He couldn't do this run, and they asked me, and I was just like instantly was like, yes, I'll do it. Like, of course I'll do it. So really fun. I think it was like 8 countries in 9 days. It's the most tired I've ever been in my life. Like, by far. Like, the story I always tell people is that like we had 2 rehearsals in Chicago, maybe a week before, and I live in Sacramento. Like, I flew out, 2 days in this, like, it was pretty funny because it was like the practice space any of your friends' bands would use. It was not nice or anything. It's just like the most like like band practice space. Like 1 PA speaker, like we're all crammed in there. And they're like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And I'm like, are you fucking sure? Like, because I've just been playing these songs in my bedroom. Like, are you sure this is like good enough to go play like Fuji rock? And they're like, yeah, it sounds great. So then we never play again until we fly out to Japan.
Oh my goodness.
Super jet lagged. The festival is like 4 hours, maybe it's like 3 hours from Tokyo where we landed. Get there, sleep a night, still jet lagged. Next day, take a shuttle to the stage. Courtney Barnett was playing, and I was like, oh my God, like we're going after this. And then we go on, and I'm backstage before we go on because I haven't played the songs with the band for like 2 weeks at this point. I haven't touched a guitar in like 36 hours. Every single song is in a different tuning. So I don't have 9 guitars in front of me. I have 1 guitar in standard tuning, and I'm wearing headphones listening to the recordings, like the studio recordings of every song, just playing the shape of the parts I'm supposed to be playing on the guitar. Because if I had the headphones out, I'd be hearing just like gibberish on the guitar because they're all in different tunings. But I was like, I just have to make sure my muscle memory is still here, because it's not like playing in standard. If I play in standard, I'm just like, I'm probably not going to hit a wrong note because I know what chord I'm playing. But if you're playing in an open tuning, it's like, if you're playing the wrong note and you run off the rails, it's like you might never find your way back until, the next repeat of the part. But this stuff is complicated. It's like, weird time signatures. So like the next repeat of the part is going to ruin the song because you're not playing,
Right.
Like, you're not playing the iconic guitar riff that everyone knows in the spot where you're supposed to. So I'm like kind of freaking out because it's by far the biggest gig I'd ever played. But I was backstage in headphones. I like figured it out. I was like, okay, I remember how to play all these songs. And then we get out there, and it was like, I've done this a few times. It's like, I feel like that situation armed me with so much, so many skills around like not freaking out, because it felt like this perfect storm. And then I always just try to remind myself, it's like, this is fun. Like, this is going to be so fun. This is the only time you're ever going to get to do this. And like, we got out there, and there's like 10,000 people. There's literally 10,000 people who are all going to see American football for the first time in their lives, and they all know the songs. And I was like, this is fucking cool. Like, I love this band. I love these songs. This is going to be great. And yeah, I mean, the biggest standout moments were like, it started pouring rain during one of the trumpet solos, and everyone, had ponchos. They're like fully prepared for it. And it's just dead silent. And like Steve's playing one of the trumpet solos. I think it was the one in The Summer Ends. And I was like, this is so fucking beautiful. There's a video of it somewhere on YouTube. Yeah. And like after that gig, I was like, oh, dude, these are all going to be so easy. Like, it's going to be no problem, because they were much smaller. They're like in clubs. So it's like, we actually get to do real sound checks. I had one under my belt. Like, every show was amazing. Super, super like engaged crowds. Like, it was so fun meeting everybody, because it's like, I've never been to Manila, and like, and you meet people and you kind of don't realize it's like, someone who's in the Philippines who grew up listening to American football is like very similar to like an American kid who grew up listening to American football, like, because they grew up on the internet. So like they all speak like perfect English. Every country we went to, it's like, I don't know if I wasn't expecting that. Like, it's like not even just like really good English. It's like, oh, we have like all the same cultural reference points. Like if you know who American football is, like, who this, and then. So it was like really cool hanging out with people, and just kind of seeing like on this other side of the world, like there's this like very strong connecting thread. And it was cool because that happened right before COVID. And then it was like, okay, the opposite thing happened where the world got very small. But it was nice to have that like lingering memory of like, oh yeah, like there's this scene is a lot bigger than people think it is. And then the other thing, yes, just like takeaways, like that's one of them. Just that, like, I don't know, is like, I think it's supposed to be obvious, but sometimes it's not. It's like music is this really cool connective thing. And when you get to experience, I mean, that's like why I'm so grateful going on tour, but it's like when you get to experience it like firsthand, it's like, oh no, like it actually is really important. Like it's more important than a lot of things. Like, and I think it's easy to take that for granted, or not think about it at all. And then just in terms of demeanor, like I think partly because those guys put a record out and then 20 years later found out people cared about it. So they're so humble and like even, almost like dismissive of it. Cause it's like, well, here's this thing we did when we were kids. I think it's becoming less and less a thing. Cause like LP2 is sick and LP3 I think is better than the first one. Like that to me is the like, I hope it solidifies over time. But I'm like, that is the defining American football record. It's fucking perfect.
I'm kind of behind you with that one. I love LP3. It's so good.
It's mind blowing. So and it's been cool, like in the years since that tour, seeing it's like it just gets bigger and bigger, and it feels cooler and cooler to get to say that I got to have any part of that band. Because like I was thinking about it, like, and I was like, I don't think it's that big an exaggeration depending on how things pan out with like how many generations listen to this band. I'm like, it's kind of like Joy Division almost. It's like where it's like this fairly obscure band at the time, that is like very iconic within like new wave, and there's tons of bands who are influenced by that. I'm like, I mean, American football is the Midwest emo band, and seeing like Gen Z discovering this music and getting more and more into it, and like hearing the term like Midwest emo come out, I'm like, that's fucking crazy. You guys have any idea what this is? Because like when I was playing music early in my teens, it was like there were maybe 5 of us at my entire school who had ever heard that term or knew any of these things. And we only knew about it through each other and the internet. And now it's like, I don't know, there's like kids who are like 18 making Midwest emo music. It's like, that's crazy. And it all forks off of this one band. It's like, I don't know, who is the other Midwest emo band that like, who is like, and it's like, it's probably a band that has another Kinsella in it. So it's like, it's already pretty closely related. And it's just cool because like, Mike and Steve, I think they get to Mike and Steve, they get to like appreciate that because it wasn't a part of their lives for 2 decades, not really. Yeah. And now they get to play huge shows and like get to be, like rock stars, and they're so cool. They're like the coolest. I've met a lot of people who, people idolize, and they are among the most chill about it. Like, they come out in the crowd and chat with everybody after. They don't even do like a VIP thing. They'll just come out of the green room. Like, nobody does that. Like, very few people do that. They do it. Yvette does it. Yvette Young, so fucking cool about like being available and accessible to fans. But that is not that common. So anybody who does that is like super, super chill. That's to be appreciated.
That's awesome. That's what I mean. That's a really beautiful thing, and it kind of, like we were talking about before, like it's all about making those connections with the people, and it's got to be so humbling to, like you were saying, something that you kind of just did 20 years ago. It has such a profound impact on so many people. Like that's the beauty of music and art.
Totally, especially that style of music where it's like, if you're making something that's like about being sad, it's like, dude, like the amount of like relief just through its lifetime that's going to bring people is like crazy. And I think like when you're the one making it, I think it's hard to appreciate that, but like you see it at those shows. It's like people have spent many private hours with those songs. And it's like, dude, that's super powerful to get all those people in a room. I hope I get to do it again. We'll see.
I hope for you too. I hope you get to. That's awesome.
It'll be fun. I got to see those guys for the first time in a while when they played LA earlier this year. And that was really fun. It was like really fun to reunite. And I was like, that was a cool thing we all got to do. It was so hectic. And I think for them, they didn't have the fuel of like, I'm playing with one of my favorite bands. They're just like, this is horrible. Like, we're doing a flight every single day. We have 25 bags at baggage claim in a Beijing airport. It's like,
oh my goodness.
But for me, I was like, this is like the coolest thing I've ever done.
That is really cool. And like you said, doing it right before COVID, like it probably was a really good thing to look back on during that time. Like, probably helped to get through COVID.
Totally. Yeah.
That's
no,
awesome.
definitely. Yeah. My adventure meter had been filled.
Yeah, makes sense. I always like to end these things with asking about the local delicacies of your native town. So tell me a little bit about Sacramento food. What's like either the spot or the type of food to get?
Oh man. Oh, my mind immediately goes to, there are like several incredible Indian restaurants in Sacramento. There's one in Dixon, which is a very weird like country town, but it's right off the freeway because there's a lot of Indian truck drivers. So it's like the spot for like Indian truck drivers. And so the food is like really authentic. Can't remember what it's called, but it's like the one Indian restaurant in Dixon. And then there's one right by my house that I eat all the time called Darbar that makes Indian, Afghani, and Chinese food. I've never had their Chinese food, but the Indian and Afghani stuff are fucking amazing. And then like the big like Sacramento dessert spot is this ice cream place called Gunther's. That's really good. Yeah. There's a lot of good food here because it's like there's so much surrounding farmland. So like literally what I think is probably the best farmers market in the country is our Sunday farmers market. Because I mean, it's the best fruit I've ever had. Like best stone fruit, best strawberries. Like anytime I have someone visiting from the East Coast, I'm like, dude, you've never had an apple. Like, we're gonna go to the farm. It's like, you don't understand. Well, I guess apple's a bad example because like I feel like you can make do with stuff on the East Coast, but like if you want a peach or something, it's like it is not close. There's no contest. Yeah. So
nice.
just eating a fucking strawberry from here is pretty mind blowing.
Well, if I ever make it out there, I'll make sure to be there on a Sunday.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna hit the farmers market.
Got to, yeah. It'll change your life.
Awesome. Well, Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Uh, it means so much to me that you joined. This was a blast.
cool.
Um, do you have anything to plug? Any new songs coming out in the next coming weeks or so?
Gosh, coming weeks. I feel like just like a stay tuned for the solo stuff. Yeah, that's gonna be happening soon. It's good that I'm saying it because then I have to do it.
Yeah, we have you on record now.
Yeah, by summer there will be something out.
Awesome.
I'll have made the Instagram for it. Yeah, new Instagram account dropping soon. Yeah, that's what I'm
Awesome.
plugging.
Cool. Well, thank you again.
Yeah,
Really appreciate you doing this.
of course, dude. Yeah, this was fun.
Huge thank you to Damien for coming and talking with me. I know I mentioned this in the video and I said this to him. Can you tell it's feeding time? Um, I've been listening to his music since I was in high school, and it is just so cool to be able to talk to him and, again, still look forward to so much more music from him. Incredibly nice person, incredibly insightful too. I loved hearing about all of his experiences, whether it be growing up in Sacramento or playing with American football. It was all so great. So thank you again. If you're new here, please, do all the YouTube things, but let me know if there's anybody else I should be interviewing. I love doing this. It's a ton of fun. So yeah, let me know.